Om Satchidananda-rupaya Vishvotpatyadi-hetave Tapatraya-vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Ketavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayonmulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishwaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudyate Trakritibihi Shushrushubi Tatchanat. With your eyes still closed, for 1 minute, we will invoke toughness and evoke hope. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. Who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? We probably have never heard this question before, and even as I'm asking this, we react. I don't belong to anyone. Everyone belongs to me. In our extrovert thinking, we can't handle this idea of me belonging to someone. The word Bhagavata is made up of, please try to remember this. Bha means light. And all synonyms of light, such as joy, peace, God. Ga means to go, like gachati, to go. Va means best, like vara. Vara means better, best. And ta means boat, that which helps us to cross over. When you put all of this together, the best boat to go to the divine is Bhagavata. Did you catch that? The best boat to go to the divine is Bhagavata. And there's one more interpretation of Bhagavata. Bhagavata equals Bhagavata idam, which means relating to Bhagwan or belonging to Bhagwan. So what is the vision? What is the mission of Srimad Bhagavatam? For us to realize, for us to feel that we belong to God. Right now we have the exact opposite feeling. God belongs to us. That's why I beg of him as my banker, as my dictator. And Vedanta. Our course is not just called Bhagavatam, rather Vedanta in Bhagavata. Veda means knowledge or to know. And Anta means the end or insight. So Vedanta here means deep thinking. Reading and writing and reflecting about Bhagavata not as an objective science, so I can perform a Bharatanatyam engagement, rather as a subjective science. This vision, this mission of Bhagavata is the same as for Ramayana. Hundreds of us gathered for 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, and we studied Vedanta in Ramayana. In the first kanda, that is Balakanda, in the first shloka, what Sri Tulsidas says, Vande Vani Vinayakau, that I offer my praise. I'm making my priority Vani. Now you can interpret Vani as Devi Saraswati, but what we should interpret this as is Vidya, or knowledge. And Vinayaka, the one who's humble, humility. We often read Vidya Dadati Vinaya. So what is the vision and mission of Ramayana? Humility. What is the vision and mission of Bhagavatam? Humility. To accept, to be proud that you belong to the divine. And belonging to the divine is the same as being divine. For those who carefully analyze the seekers in Sanatana Dharma, many of them have everything outside, yet don't feel like everything inside. A classic example of that is Prince Arjuna, no? He has everything outside, yet doesn't feel everything inside. In our course, it is Raja Parikshita, has everything outside, yet doesn't feel everything inside. Can you relate to that? I feel we have more than everything outside, yet that completion inside is not present. That presence is not felt. So Raja Parikshita asks Rishi Shuka, what should a man who's dying do? This is the formation or the foundation of the narration of Bhagavatam. What should a man who's dying do? Do you really think that Rishi Shuka has to answer this? Isn't every man dying? We died more over the last 2 weeks, and now we'll continue to die for 10 weeks, and continue to die for however long we're together. See, there's a universality to this question. This is not about a man. This is not about dying. This is about sadness. This question is, what should a sad person do to not be sad? What should a sad person do to feel like they belong to happiness? And the answers come over 18,000 verses. Long answer, because that's the level of detail that is needed. How many of you are joining us for the first time in this course? Okay, a lot of new students and a lot of old students who just quit. We began Vedanta and Bhagavata with chapter 0, which is really known as the Mahatmya. It is a way of us tuning into what we're about to experience. It's like a preview before a movie. Don't you get excited as you watch a preview? Your eyes get adjusted, your ears get adjusted. The first skanda means section. The message is about the adhikari, who is the student of Bhagavatam. And in the second skanda, the focus is sadhana. A student is one who engages in discipline. First 2 skandhas. This is a very microscopic focus that Bhagavatam takes up for us to relate to this scripture. You're a student, yes? And you want to know, what are you supposed to do as a student? Skanda 1 and 2 is almost like chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Skanda 3, we shift to Sarga. Sarga means creation. Skanda 4 is Visarga, which is creation in more detail. And then Skanda 5 is Sthana, which is creation in more detail. So creation, creation, creation. How this relates to us, Bhagavatam is addressing the logical side of us. We are always engaged in causation hunting, correct? Why this? Why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? So Bhagavatam gets that out of the way. Creation is addressed at so many levels. This logic is really for our mind. Our mind is fickle. And so it always wants to jump here, jump here. So Bhagavatam addresses that. Skanda 6, the teaching is on Poshana. Poshana means grace, blessings. Skanda 7 is Uti. Uti is your vasanas, the blueprint of why you are the way you are. You know, like your family says that in a negative way, I'm saying that in a positive way. Don't spouses say that? You're exactly like your mother. You're exactly like your father. They never say that in a meaningful way. And now Skanda 8, which we're immersed in, is on Saddharma. That is not good dharma or ordinary dharma, but great dharma, extraordinary dharma. Now these 3 skandhas, how this relates to us, after logic comes faith. These 3 skandhas are reaching out to encourage us to have faith. That's why Poshana, correct? Look how lucky you are. Count your blessings. This reaches to our intellect. So 3 skandhas for the mind, 3 skandhas for the intellect. And letting you know in advance, when we get to skanda 9, 10, 11, they're all about Bhagwan. Bhagwan Rama, Bhagwan Krishna. That is for us to surrender the ego to. And if you do this, skanda 12 is on enlightenment. What life will be like when one is independently joyous. We'll get to skanda 9, 10, 11, 12 many years from now, so just be patient. I already told you there's 18,000 verses that we're driving through. We have to free ourselves of deservership and doership. Bhagavatam systematically is helping us to free ourselves of this by reminding us that the real deserver, the real doer is not us, rather is Bhagwan. Yes? I don't know if you've ever played a sport where you felt like you scored, but in the replay, someone else actually scored. Right? When you feel like you've scored, you're singing and dancing and looking to the crowd, just putting your hand up like this, but then you realize actually there was a foul that was called or someone else touched the ball last. What happens to that deservership and doership then? Now that's for a game, for a sport. Here we're exploring our whole life. And you would have caught in the second verse that I chant, Nirmatsaranam satam, which means for one to follow dharma, one has to be free of jealousy. If you are a jealous person, you cannot be responsible. In fact, you pull back others from their responsibilities, correct? And jealousy is indescribably subtle. Because we justify it. I'm right, or I'm competing, or I'm furthering whatever it may be. Jealousy manifests at all levels. Tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, individual levels, family levels, community levels. Our scripture is so lovely because repeatedly there are stutis, there are hymns on Bhagwan. And some get bored by that. Okay, we already know Bhagwan Narayana is the best. Why don't we just move on to the next story? See, there's that jealousy. Correct? If I pick one student in this class, let's just suppose we have someone in our class named Geeta. And there's bound to be, when there's 150 students, there's got to be one Geeta in this class at least. See, as I'm talking about Geeta, then there's got to be a Priya in this class too, right? So then Priya all of a sudden says, how come he's not using my name? How come he's talking about Geeta? See how hard it is for us to hear someone else talk about another person? To let go of such jealousy, deservership, doership. When we began our course, we reached a verse that said 24 incarnations of the infinite will be focused on. Incarnation 0 is Bhagwan Narayana. Incarnation 24 is Bhagwan Kalki, beginning to end. Now, most of us are exposed to the Dasha Avatara, correct? I can't keep track of 24. Give me something simpler. So, 10 have become a focal point. I'm going to review with you what these 10 are and which ones we've had darshan of so far. The first is Bhagwan Matsya, whom we've not had darshan of yet, but Bhagwan Matsya is coming in this skanda, probably a couple of weeks from now. So you'll get to meet God in a few weeks. How exciting is that? Then Bhagwan Kurma. We met him or we didn't meet him? We met Bhagwan Kurma. Number 3 is Bhagwan Varaha. Did we meet him? It's hard to say him. It's more like it. It's more universal, correct? So we've met Bhagwan Kurma, Varaha. After that is Bhagwan Narasimha. Yes or no? Yes. After that, Bhagwan Vamana. Number 5 is Bhagwan Vamana. Have we met Bhagwan Vamana? Today you will. Today we get to meet Bhagwan Vamana. Number 6 is Bhagwan Parusharama. Have we met him? No. That will be marginally frightening, but when you know about him more, you'll embrace him more. Then number 7 is Bhagwan Rama. Number 8, Bhagwan Krishna. Number 9, Bhagwan Buddha. And number 10, Bhagwan Kalki. So if you've counted, we've only we've only met 3 of the 10 avatars. And we've been together for 2 years. In the 8th skanda, giving you some foreshadowing. Actually, what we've covered in the 8th skanda has been about Gajendra. Of how Gajendra was freed. That was so lovely. And we also explored how Bhagwan Ayyappa was born. How he's a combination of Bhagwan Narayana and Bhagwan Shiva. In this skanda, we will also now come to be with Bhagwan Vamana and Bhagwan Matsya. What is very special to me about our course is all that you're hearing, all that I'm speaking about, is factual. I'm going through every verse. These verses have not changed year after year, decade after decade. This is not a recipe that gets better or worse. Because a lot of our exposure to Bhagavatam is through comic books, through television serials, through what our grandparents taught us. And that's all pleasant, but knowledge is power, correct? When you know these facts, there's so much pride that you feel. Satisfied with our review, especially all of our new students? Okay. How lucky you are. 2 years and 20 minutes. Fast food, fast Bhagavatam. Now, we continue. We're on the 8th skanda. If you haven't caught that yet, this is going to be a long 10 weeks for you. We are on the 19th adhyaya. That means the 19th chapter, the 17th shloka, the 17th verse. This is what Bhagwan Vamana says to Raja Bali. I'm going to say it, and then I'll bring you to how we got here. Nanyate kamaye rajan vadanya jagadishwarat nainaf prapnoti ve vidvan yavad artha pratigraha. Bhagwan Vamana. And I must share with all of you, what does Vamana mean? Anyone who knows, and you can guess, this is a non-judgmental experience. What does Vamana mean? Short, air, dwarf. Sanatana Dharma is so cruel. Hey, dwarf. Hey, shorty. Vamana means adorable. Adorable. Like an infant. You know, all infants are adorable. So he is adorable, and people just started calling him that. But that's not his birth name, Vamana. Just like I told you with Mohini, remember? There's no reference to Mohini. But we like Bollywood movies, and it sounds great. Mohini. Bhagwan Vamana says to Raja Bali, what I've asked for is enough. What has he asked for? 3 strides, 3 steps of land. This is all that's needed to be happy. And when someone has more than what they need, there's a propensity to act in a sinful way. In other words, they become more desirous, more angry, more greedy. But if you're living in a simple way, then your thinking is high. Okay, so now, how did this all manifest? Chapters 13 and 14 of this 8th section focuses on different manus. A manu is the ultimate ruler in that period. Okay? And that's why I shared with you another name for this section is Manvantara. That was an alternative name. Manvantara, which is really the descriptions of the rulers. And I've also shared with you Those rulers are put in place by Bhagwan. So should any ruler feel like I'm the doer? No, because there's someone above her or him. As this Manvantara or Manvantaras are explained, at one point, Raja Bali is actually Indra. You know how those two are always battling it out? And I recently shared with you that Indra was chiding Raja Bali, saying, look how weak you are, we beat you. And Raja Bali says, time is in your favor now, time will be in my favor later. And isn't it true? At one point, Raja Bali was Indra. Raja Bali is great, which is why he's also known as Mahabali. And that name is truly deserved by him. He was most devoted to his guru. His name is Acharya Shukra. Acharya Shukra. Because of his devotion, he had everything outside. And he sought it. He sought pleasure. He sought possession. He sought position. Remember though, he has a guru in his life. So though he sought all of this, he knew that this was not peace. Pleasure, possession, position is not peace. I feel like in our lives, when we don't have a guide in our life, we trick ourselves into believing position is peace when it's not. And that guide starts to hammer away at this understanding, which is why Raja Bali was so generous. He had all of the pleasure, possession, and position, but he knew it wasn't peace, so he was known to be most generous. He gave all of it away. You know that, and those details are shared. Now we'll pause there. Let's shift to Bhagwan Vamana. Do you all remember Rishi Kashyapa? You're all nodding confidently. Okay, tell me. Tell me who he is. Tell me who he was married to. Rishi Kashyapa had two wives, Diti and Aditi. Diti was the mother of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Her children were known as the Daityas. If you want a sattvic or light way to insult your family members, call them Daityas. They'll think that you're praising them. Yeah, I'm a Daitya. And then you just smile and wink. And his second wife was Aditi. And Aditi's children became Adityas. Adityas. When Raja Bali became more and more powerful, he defeated Indra and pushed all of the suras out of Swarga, etc. And this made Devi Aditi quite sad. Nobody wants to see their children suffer. So she was saddened by all of this, and Rishi Kashyapa, her husband, he was a wanderer, and he happened to see her sad once. And he shares a lovely prayer. I wanted to highlight this prayer. I feel this is needed so much now. Apya bhadram na vipranam bhadre loke dhunagatam na dharmasya na lokasya mrityos chandanu vartinaha. Which means, this is just for your reference. Rishi Kashyapa says to his wife, I pray that nothing unbecoming has happened to the holy people. I pray that the path of dharma is not being harmed. I pray that though everyone is going to die, that no one is suffering. What a comprehensive prayer. Holy people are the foundation. They provide holiness. Their methodology is dharma. And then thinking about all of humanity, that we're all going to die, but may we not suffer. So he offers this prayer to Devi Aditi, and she shares about how her children are struggling. And Rishi Kashyapa then teaches her what is known as the Payovrata. Vrata means discipline or commitment, and payaha means milk, dairy. Be dedicated to dairy. The implication of this, when you are perpetually remembering the divine, you engage in perpetual betterment. There's so many details of what's involved in this vrata, like what time you should bathe, how much you should eat, what prayers to chant. That level of detail. It's almost like has anyone ever been to the White House? Okay. So when I got to go to the White House for a Deepavali celebration many years ago, there was so much security protocol. Since I'm on this subject, I'll tell you very briefly. After you go through security and they have that radio tag, so they know where you are on the White House property the whole time, then the security agent said, go over there and wait for your escort. They're going to take you to the celebration. And no one came for a long time. So I went back to the security and said, no escort has come. She said, there's a black phone there. Pick it up and ask for one. So I went to that black phone and I said, my name is Acharya Vivek and I'm here for the Diwali celebration. And that person had no idea what I was talking about. So she said to me, are you Secret Service? Like I was speaking in code to her about why I'm there. I should have said yes. And then all my American visitation rights would be ended. But see, my point is that there's so much of protocol before you get to where you have to go. That's the nature of these vratas. Don't treat them as extreme rituals. The idea is perpetual remembrance leads to perpetual betterment. And now wrapping up this week's class. When Devi Aditi, in her discipline, completed this vrata, Bhagwan Vamana manifested. He was not born, he manifested, and he manifested with 4 arms. He manifested with his conch and his mace and his discus and his lotus. And what is shared is he manifested like that so his parents are not unaware of who he is. So he manifested like that, and then as soon as they saw him like that, he quickly disguised himself as an infant. And he was most Vamana. How cool is Bhagwan? Just playing games with his parents, with everyone. It's such a leela. And he found out that Raja Bali was organizing the Ashwamedha Yaga, this huge ritual. And at huge rituals, there's lots of food, correct? The bigger the wedding, the more the buffets. So he goes to this Ashwamedha Yaga, and Raja Bali is so respectful of him, washes his feet, puts that water on his head, and he says that I'm like Bhagwan Shiva. Just like Bhagwan Shiva always has Mother Ganga on his head, now I have your water on my head. So very different than, I feel Raja Bali is always portrayed to be quite arrogant. But that's not the case. He's quite respectful. And then he asks Bhagwan Vamana, what would you like? And he says, I want 3 steps of land. That's all I need. I actually don't want this. I need this. And now, amazing dialogues go on about wealth management. You're expecting me to say, bhakti bhava, but really, wealth management. And I'm going to share those details with you next week.